Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. This is Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. Basically, I'm going to give you a chapter by chapter, beat by beat breakdown of a book that I read recently. Today, that book is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. This book is 314 pages. It was published in 2020 and currently on Goodreads. It is sitting at a 4.22 with 167,000 ratings. If you are unfamiliar with what this book is, I'll read you the blurb that the author provides, and then we'll get into some content warnings and some other disclaimers before we get into deep diving this book. When Cora Lawson attends her sister's birthday party, she expects at most a hangover or a walk of shame by the end of it. She doesn't anticipate a stolen wallet, leaving her stranded and dependent on her sister's fiance, Dean Asher, her arch nemesis and perpetual thorn in her side. And she really doesn't anticipate getting knocked out and waking up chained in a madman's basement, Dean in his own shackles beside her. After 15 years of teasing, insults, and never-ending pranks, the ultimate joke seems to be on them. The two people who always thought they would end up killing each other must now work together if they ever want to survive long enough to escape. But Cora and Dean don't know that their abductor has a plan for them, a plan that will alter the course of their relationship, blur the line between love and hate, and shackle them to each other long after they are freed from their chains. They're in this together, no matter what their unexpected bond might cost them. The author does not provide a content or trigger warning in the Kindle Unlimited edition of the book, but she does provide it on her website. She has the following: sexual assault, kidnapping, death of a character, and violence. In addition to that, I would just like to say, hey man, you heard what was said. They get kidnapped. There is a lot of on-page, graphically depicted SA by said crazy guy. I genuinely felt like I was watching an episode of Law and Order SVU, and telling you the story today, I'm gonna feel like Bailey Sarian. Like, I'm gonna be channeling some like crime YouTuber podcaster people as I tell this story today. It is very, very rough in that regard, but it's well done, in my opinion. It is a dark romance. I would consider this like a crime romance. I will be brushing over a significant part of that, obviously, for the sake of this video, but I just want you to know that. There's a lot of graphic violence, there's a lot of graphic on-page scenes, self-unaliving, there's like self-harm, there's abuse of alcohol, and I think that's everything. Yeah, all in all, crazy book. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was actually very well written. I thought it was very interesting and unique and poignant and just actually surprisingly good. Doesn't happen very often on this channel. So that's the one disclaimer. The other disclaimer is, like I said, this is a beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown. So this will contain all of the spoilers. Don't watch this if you want to read it. And also, don't watch this if you're the author, or if you're a friend, fan, family stan, anything of the like. My reviews are for readers. It's for fellow people like me who just want to gossip. It's just, like, consider this like a little FaceTiming hangout session. I just get y'all filled in on a book that I read. This is nothing formal or crazy. Obviously not like a real critique to the author. The one little bit of housekeeping, all of my videos are on Spotify. I have the link in the description box below if it's easier for you to check out stuff over there. I will be uploading a Spotify exclusive audiobook narration little reading thing. So I try to do that once a month over there, get some practice in with my narration. Okay, without further ado, let's get into Still Beating. Our book opens with a 29-year-old Cora at the bar. She's celebrating her older sister Mandy's 30th birthday. I love that we're dealing with all grown folk here. The sisters are 10 months apart and they're very close, and also they're in Northern Illinois. Shout out to all my Illinois people. The issue is that she's sitting next to Dean Asher, my sister's prick of a fiance. 15 years is the amount of time that I've been subjected to Dean's teasing, ridicule, and bad attitude. He's the stereotypical bad boy, grumpy, well-muscled, always reeking of cigarettes and leather, and pathetically good-looking. Ew. And now I'm preparing to be the maid of honor in her wedding next month. Right? So Mandy and Dean are finally getting married after being together for 15 years. She tells her sister, I'm never getting married, Mandy. Divorce just isn't on my bucket list, maybe in another life. Marriage is sacred. Dean and I are never getting a divorce. Cora thinks to herself, possibly true. Dean seems like the type who would be content staying married while enjoying his side chicks along the way, and Mandy is certainly the type to turn a blind eye. Jesus, that's a very strong opinion to have. Like, of this dude. She doesn't want to get in a car with them. Like, she doesn't want to deal with Dean anymore that night. They seriously have had like a 15-year-long beef where they just like don't like each other or give the impression that they don't like each other. Dude, I'd have thrown hands by that point. I would not be entertaining 15 years of bullying. But anyway, so she elects to stay behind at the bar and just keeps drinking and talking to this guy. Eventually, when she goes to leave, she goes outside to call an Uber and she realizes that her wallet is gone. Somebody stole it. She doesn't want to talk to the guy at the bar. After she confronts him about stealing her purse, he's like, why in the fuck would I do that? He's like, you literally sat by me all night. How would I have even stolen your wallet? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. She's like, oh yeah, okay. Tucks her tail between her legs and goes outside to start calling people to pick her up, right? It's a 7-mile walk home. She's in heels. It's middle of the night, 2 a.m. She doesn't want to do that. So she starts calling people. Her best friend doesn't answer. Her sister doesn't answer. So she's left with the only choice, which is to call Dean Asher. When she calls Dean, he immediately picks up. They have a little bit of banter, but he says, yeah, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Okay, coming in clutch. I love that. She waits outside of the bar for some godforsaken reason. I don't care how small the town is. I cannot imagine standing outside of a bar at 2 a.m. for like an extended amount of time. Couldn't be me. But she's standing out there, and this creepy guy comes up to her. She says he looks like John Wayne Gacy. And just super bad vibes, very uncomfortable, gets all up in her personal space, is like hitting on her basically, trying to take her home. Luckily, before that escalates any further, Dean pulls into the parking lot, hops out of his car, tells her to get in. John Wayne Gacy guy says, hey, is she yours? Like, y'all dating? Y'all together? And Dean says, fuck no, of course not. He says it mostly to mess with Cora, like to get under her skin. But like, oh my God, again, fighting words. So they get in the car. He's driving her home. They're, again, just continued, I can't make this clear enough to you, bickering back and forth. It's not very annoying. It's actually pretty well done through the book. I know I'm making it sound dramatic, but that's just because I could not be in that situation. Like, that would irritate the shit out of me, the idea of constant bickering with somebody. But in the book, it's well written, like their discussion. On the way home, there's red and blue flashing lights, right? They're getting pulled over. She's like, WTF, Dean? Like, what did you do? Like, do you have a warrant out for your arrest? He pulls over to the side of the road. Seconds later, the passenger window gets busted open and a hand comes flying in to start, like, choking her out. What in the hell? It's the John Wayne Gacy guy. And he ends up, there's some violence and stuff that ends up happening, but he ends up, like, hitting Dean, and Dean's passed out on her lap, and then he hits her and everything goes black. And it's like, oh wow, that's chapter 1. Like, it escalates so quickly. So then in chapter 2, they come to and they wake up and they are chained in a basement, like on either opposite walls of each other. They're yelling for help. After a little while, they stop yelling and kind of accept that they are in this horrible situation, and they start yelling at each other. My resentment is spewing out of me, and maybe Dean doesn't deserve it, but it's easier this way. It's easier than accepting the reality of our situation. Dude comes down, sees them, says he has to make a car disappear and that he'll be back in a couple of hours. Dean is yelling at him, right? Threatening him, calling him a POS, saying that he's going to unalive him, all this stuff. And the dude says, nah, I've heard all of those threats before. It's the same one the other guys have always said. So this dude is like a serial unaliver. It's not a spoiler, but this is the 6th couple that he has kidnapped and done this with. Oh my God. So he makes a couple more veiled threats and then leaves. She is completely demoralized. She's realizing, like, wow, it's no use. I say quietly, my head propped against the metal post that binds me to this nightmare, this prison. We're trapped. And Dean says, I'm not giving up. So I think I said it, but it was like they're chained to the basement, like there's poles, and then they're like handcuffed behind the pole. You know what I mean? So they're like behind, Anyway, eventually, Dean says, I used to joke that we'd probably end up killing each other one day. He murmurs, kicking a small rock near his sneaker. I guess I always had a feeling that we would go together. Oh my God. She's trying to get some sleep, right? It's, again, 2 a.m. when they first got kidnapped, and then however much longer since they, like, passed out and woke back up. So she's trying to sleep, but she can't. And Dean starts singing to soothe her. And he starts singing one of her favorite songs, Hey Jude by the Beatles. And I know that this is supposed to be comforting and cute and meaningful, but it is killing me. That's so fucking funny. You're chained up in a basement. You're about to get unalived, and some dude is just serenading you with the Beatles? I don't know why that's so funny to me. It's just so weird. So in chapter 3, dude returns. His name is Earl. Earl is their kidnapper, of course. He comes down, walks straight to Cora, completely ignoring Dean's yelling and threats. And Cora ends up kicking him, like, in the shin. She spits on him, and he calls her his feisty little kitten. And honestly, I don't know if this makes it better or worse, or if this is just me coping with things. But have you seen, like, the Discord mod memes? It's a guy with a little fedora, and it's always the jokes about the Discord mods calling them kittens. So I just picture like a Discord mod guy meme dude, and it made this at least a little less horrifying. Maybe more horrifying, honestly. I don't know. I hate it here. She says, there's no reasoning with this man. There's no bond that I can form with him, no carefully established connection that I can fake. My instincts tell me that he is too far gone. He has no conscience, no soul, no trace of sympathy that I can try to manipulate. She gets, AR'd, and afterward is catatonic for a while. When she does finally respond to Dean, who is trying to comfort her and talk to her and something, she lashes out at him. And she's like, you don't care about me. Why are you even asking? Like, you don't care. He says, I do care. She says, you've never cared about me. All you've ever done is bully and torment me. And he pushes back saying, like, you were in on it. Like, that was just our relationship. We banter back and forth. We push each other's buttons. We prank each other and all of these things. And then she just repeats it. She's like, I cannot trust you, and I don't feel safe with you. I'm always wondering what the next prank is, and I'm wondering, like, how you're gonna get me next, and it's not comfortable. Like, you torture me. Goes as far to say, I'm always wondering what the next prank is, or wondering how you're going to sabotage my next relationship. His eyes flicker with something that I can't exactly pinpoint. It's not guilt or remorse. It's not enjoyment either. Whatever. My eyebrows pull up, expecting more than a brush off. That's it? That's all you have to say for the role that you've played in ending my 4-year relationship? Yeah, whatever. He doesn't assault her again that night, right? That was in the morning. He does come in and give them a bathroom break. The break was short-lived, unfortunately. He shoved me into a tiny restroom with an oversized t-shirt that reeked of him, then ordered me to change. I climbed out of my shredded dress and replaced it with the white shirt, doing my business, brushing my teeth with a pink toothbrush that he left out for me, and joining him out in the hallway a few moments later. He handed me a turkey sandwich and a glass of water and told me I had 3 minutes to eat. He timed it. Then he dragged me back down to the basement, cuffed me to the pole, and did the same thing with Dean. In the process, she also took off her high heels, right? So she's just barefoot, no pants, just hanging out in a white t-shirt, sitting in the basement, freezing her ass off, right? And getting assaulted regularly. And it's incredibly sad, but she's kind of hopeful in a way, because he's giving them food and water and whatnot, which would indicate that he's not planning on unaliving them anytime soon. So good and bad. That night when she tries to go to sleep, she can't, and she asks Dean to sing to her again and to sing Hey Jude again. Oh my God. She's shivering and she's so cold, and she tells Dean as much though. And he says that he would give her his socks if she had any way to actually put them on. So instead, he kicks off his just, like, tennis shoes and kicks them over at her so she can put her little feet in them and keep her warm. It's, like, so sad. Oh my God, I can't imagine, dude. In chapter 5, it's only a page, and it's just describing how it's a Groundhog Day. Just getting assaulted, eating turkey sandwiches, taking bathroom breaks, and hanging out with Dean in the meantime, playing 20 questions, talking about life, all sorts of things. And it's just repeating. In chapter 6, an entire week has gone by. She's just, again, AR'd daily and maintaining what they can. And that morning, she's thinking about how before she was kidnapped, she was researching local animal shelters to adopt a dog. She, that Sunday, had an appointment to go to the pound and meet 2 dogs. She had their little bios printed out, and she was going to go and meet them and see which one she fell in love with to adopt and take home. And she was looking forward to it, and she's all heartbroken now. Oh my God. Dean asks what she's thinking about. She plays it off. They end up starting a game of confession for confession, which these always I've never heard of a game like that didn't go immediately sexual. So his confession, opening confession is, before I started dating Mandy, the sister, it was freshman year, and you walked into Mr. Adelman's class wearing that little denim skirt and purple blazer. Your hair was all long and gold and had some kind of flower clip in it. I thought you were the prettiest girl that I'd ever seen. Like, he fell for her first before Mandy. The scandal. I thought we would at least warm up to such a thing, but it's immediate. He says, I just figured you should know. Like, if anything happens, I just want you to know that, which is also, again, horrifically sad. Her confession is that she lost her virginity to Mr. Adelman. Oh, God. It was when she was 19. They ran into each other at a bar, ended up hooking up after, and then never talked again. He says, what the fuck? I thought you lost it to Brandon. That was her 4-year relationship. She says, no, you're the only person that I've ever told that to. Like, you're the only person that I've ever admitted that that's who I lost it to. So, yeah, I think everybody thought that I lost it to Brandon. He then goes on to say, I have another confession, but it's about Brandon. She says, WTF does that even mean? And he reveals he was cheating on you, Cora Bell. That's her name, by the way. I say Cora because that's what she goes by, but her full name is Cora Bell. Corabelle. Cora Bell. And he calls her that exclusively. Like, he does not call her Cora because it gets under her skin. Like, it annoys the shit out of her because she hates her real name. And so that he strictly calls her Cora Bell. Anyway, he was cheating on you. I caught him outside of the Oar with his tongue. The Oar is the bar. The Oar with his tongue down some floozy's throat. I roughed him up a little bit and told him to break it off with you or I would break his face. I knew it would destroy you to know that he cheated, so I told him to blame it on me. You already hated me. It was better than letting you hate yourself or having you think that you weren't good enough for that douchebag. I'm about to tell him that I've gone 15 years thinking I wasn't good enough for him, for his friendship, for his respect, for his decency, but I don't get the words out in time because Earl's boots are making their way down the creaky basement steps, and I'm about to get R'd for the 7th time in a row. Dean and I turn to the sadistic fucker who is advancing upon us with a devilish leer. And this day, it's not Earl who R's her. He makes Dean do it, which is arguably an even more horrible turn of events. And the only thing that is worth noting is obviously Dean is very against this. He says, I won't do that to you. I would rather die. And he means it. I swear to God, he means it. But she says, you have to, it's okay, like, you have to do what you have to survive, like, I'm okay with it. It's bad. The only thing worth noting about this situation is that, like, as he's doing these things to her, he's rubbing her wrist, like, on her pulse point on her wrist, and just keeps rubbing in little circles. And he says, hey, just focus on that. Don't focus on anything else. Not me, not Earl, just my little thumb on your hand right here. And just keeps rubbing in circles there. Okay. It's relevant. It gets repeatedly talked about this pulse point and this, like, wrist spot, okay? Jesus Christ. In chapter 7, it's Dean. It's after this first assault from Dean. And he can't even look at her. Like, he is so upset and heartbroken and, like, can't stand himself. Like, absolutely hates himself for what he had to do. I close my eyes and whisper goodnight. Dean never responds to me that night. He doesn't sing. Oh my God. In chapter 8, we get a flashback from 10 years earlier, and Dean is driving Mandy and Cora to breakfast with their grandmother. There's a blizzard outside, and it's super, super sketchy. They're running late to breakfast, and Cora spots a dog in the middle of the road, clearly hurt, and every time a car drives by, the slush from the road, like, splashes on the dog, and she's worried that it's going to freeze to death. So she ends up forcing Dean to pull over so she can run out and catch this dog. She's about to pick it up when Dean comes running over, because he's like, dude, you're literally going to end up, like, unaliving yourself in the middle of this freeway trying to get this dog. When he comes up, the dog gets scared, runs away down the ravine, and she waits in, like, the median, like the middle part of the road, and then I see them. Dean is trudging up the steep ravine carrying the 50-pound animal in his arms. My sigh of relief hits the air and my body relaxes. That is until Dean makes a daring sprint across the highway, not noticing a car speeding right at him with its lights off. She warns him just in time. He stops. They get into the car. He puts the dog in the backseat with her, and they go off to the vet. And she keeps the dog and names it Blizzard. And we go back to current day. So one of the last things that she said that night, when Dean was, I don't want to say ignoring her because obviously he was dealing with, like, traumatic stuff, but when he wasn't responding to her and she was just making idle chit chat, she told him that she was thinking about adopting a dog. She was like, yeah, you know, the other day when you asked like a penny for my thoughts. I was thinking about how I was going to go to the dog shelter, and I was going to go meet these 2 dogs and adopt one of them. So when she wakes up the next day, she's about to tell Dean good morning and try and make some more small talk with him and, just pass some time. And Dean speaks up first. You would have gotten them both. Your heart is too big. You would have gotten both of them. And she's looking at him as he's saying this to her, and he looks the roughest that he has yet. Like, he's gaunt, his skin is ashen, like the spark is out of his eyes. Like, he was holding up pretty good the first 7 days, but after what he had to do to her, he's like completely not doing hot. And she says, I didn't think you ever noticed my heart. It's a heavy declaration, and I hate that it's true. Dean's weary face grows even wearier as he absorbs my words. It's impossible not to notice, Cora. Some time passes, and she says, what are we? I wonder aloud. I was not expecting those words to come out, but they have been plaguing me for days. Dean has always fit into a very specific box in my life. Dean, the asshole. Dean, my sister's dumb boyfriend. Dean, my mortal enemy. But you don't feel like my enemy anymore, I finish. You feel like my lifeline, she's thinking. I watch a small frown crease his eyebrows as he studies me. Seconds tick by and turn into minutes. Our gazes drift and collide. He is thinking, probably wondering the same thing. I don't know. Dean finally replies, a certain kind of sadness lacing every word, but I think you were right. We'll never be friends. Oh my God. In chapter 9, it's 5 years earlier. We're going through this very quickly, I know. Like I said, if you can get past the first part of it where it is like detailing the R and this like trauma, or if you're okay with reading that type of stuff, this is a phenomenal book. It's also very, very heavy, so I'm skimming over a lot of the really like traumatic triggering stuff just to get the story across to you. But it's on Kindle Unlimited if you would like to read it in more detail. So in chapter 9, we're given another flashback. This time it's 5 years earlier, and breaking and entering was not exactly on my to-do list for the day, or any day for that matter, but Mandy talked me into it. The foreclosed Garrison home is subject of many twisted tales and sordid rumors in our small town, especially this time of year. Besides, Brandon sounded overly enthusiastic about the prospect of spending the night in the creepy house, and I didn't want him to think I was a coward. I am, of course. I'm practically pissing myself with fear right now. So it's a little haunted sleepover double date, and Dean is picking the lock of the door, and she's like, where in the hell did you learn that? And he doesn't say anything. They get into the building. They have a couple more pranks on each other. He pulls out a bag of powdered donuts. She asks if she can have one because they're her favorite snack. When she eats it, she takes a bite. It's not powdered sugar on the donuts, it's cornstarch. Oh my God. So she starts to pretend that she is having an allergic reaction and going into anaphylactic shock, telling him as she's like wheezing that she's allergic to cornstarch. She collapses, and Mandy and Brandon were in the other room, like they were off doing other stuff. And so Dean starts yelling. He's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Starts like cradling her and freaking out and calling after Mandy to figure out what's going on. And he even goes as far to start doing CPR on her. And then that's when Dean cradles my face in his hands, lifting my head upright. His thumbs caress my cold cheeks. The gesture is strange and gentle, and it unnerves me as I lie there holding my breath. Eventually, he does CPR, and once he starts doing CPR, that's when she starts laughing and says that it was a prank. Mandy and Brandon are like, dude, that's like way too far. That's not funny at all. Like, that's a horrible joke. And Dean is really, really messed up by it. It's a fun night, a memorable night, but something is off. It could be the uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. It could be the chill in the air. It could be the tummy ache from all of the junk food I've consumed. It could be the spiders lurking in the shadows, waiting to breed inside of our brains. Or it could be that Dean doesn't say a single word to me for the rest of the night. Cut to current day. 16 sunrises mock us from the frosty window. 20 questions, turkey sandwiches, hunger pains, heart pains, singing, stories, despair, sex with Dean. Sex with Dean. That is something I'll likely never wrap my head around. It's happened 4 times now that I've had with Dean Asher, and it's not R. I will never call it R. Every time he waits for my consent. Every time he is willing to die in that moment if I choose to say no, and every time he dies just a little bit anyway. There's more really horrible things that continue to happen to her, but Earl rips off his belt, and as it slides through the loops, I notice a tiny piece of the latch fly loose. It's so small, it hardly makes a sound as it lands at Dean's foot, but Dean notices, and I watch as he hides the metal clasp beneath his sock. I don't know what it means or what the purpose may be, but it's the only thing we have. In chapter 10, on the 18th day, he is forced to assault her again, and while doing so, he picks the lock on her cuffs, which, hey, I just again want to say this book did such a good job I love a jumbled timeline. I love flashbacks and jumbled timelines and like storytelling in that way. It's so interesting and good. And this book did such a good job with it of every flashback we have is meaningful, and there's little breadcrumbs of importance of each of these scenes. For example, the one that I just told you about of them at the haunted house is not only indicative that he does actually genuinely care about her and is worried for her well-being, but it opened with a very brief brushing over the fact that he knows how to pick locks, and now he's picking a lock, right? It like plants the little seed that makes it a believable situation. I didn't feel like anything I read was for fluff. Everything in this book had a purpose. Every sentence and story and bit and piece served a greater purpose, which I genuinely appreciate, given some of the absolute crap that we've read on this channel that just has filler upon filler. So I just wanted to note that. Anyway, he's picking the lock. He whispers into her ear, "Don't let go of your cuffs. Don't let them fall." He doesn't say that he's sorry this time. He doesn't cry or beg for my forgiveness. He pulls back and winks. They wait a few hours until she gets up, and then she goes over and tries to pick Dean's handcuffs. He tries to walk her through it, but she's shaking and crying and overwhelmed, and she's unable to do it. And he says, "It's okay, Cora. Don't worry about it," he tells me, trying to find me over his shoulder. I scoot forward so we can see each other. "Just get out of here and bring back help." She's about to leave and go up the stairs, and he says, "I know I said that you can go back to hating me when we get out of here, but I really hope that you don't." Bro, that makes me want to cry. She goes up the stairway, gets into the house. It's filthy, it's dirty, it's grimy, it's smelly, it's bad. She's going through the kitchen to try to get to the back door, and she sees a little calendar on the wall, and she can't help it. I flip through the preceding months, my curiosity getting the better of me. 9 days prior to the 8th are blank. The last X is etched into the square on October 29th. My stomach coils with dread at the realization that another couple likely died that day. I count the previous X's. There are 22. The couple before us survived 22 days in that basement. She goes back even more months. There's multiple instances where it was only 22 days that these people lived for. She gets outside to make a run for it, and as she tries to run, Earl grabs her. Earl snarls against my ear as I kick my legs and scream into his filthy palm. "Nice try, kitten. You're gonna have to pay for this." As he's dragging her back inside, she looks over and realizes that he was frying a turkey. It's Thanksgiving. It's a national holiday. We blew our escape attempt on the one day that he didn't have to work. Oh, shit. Oh, no, right? So he throws her down the stairs. She lands at the bottom, hits her head on the concrete floor, and she's unresponsive for 4 hours, right? He obviously came back down the stairs and like cuffed her to the pole again, but Dean is so happy when she finally comes to, genuinely thinking that she died. "Remember the day that Blizzard got hit by the car? Do you remember what I said to you?" Dean continues. I sniffle, my chin to my knees as I lay sideways on the ground. "You said if she dies, I can always get another dog." Not that part. Dean's sigh travels to me, and I hear him adjust his chains. "I told you, her heart was still beating. As long as it was beating, she was okay." Dean was the first person to arrive at the animal hospital. I figured it was because he'd always had a soft spot for the fluffy ivory dog he carried to safety in a snowstorm all those years ago. But I remember him being unusually kind that day. He sat with me until my sister and parents showed up, trying to calm me down. He even rubbed my back, shushing away the tears. The foreignness in his disposition was enough to distract me from the grief, and his words always stuck with me. "You just need to stay in the moment." Dean told me in an unfamiliar, soothing voice. "Her heart is still beating. As long as it's beating, she's okay. Just take it 1 second at a time, Cora Belle. Blizzard is okay, and there's no reality where she's not okay." Oh my gosh. In chapter 12, Earl comes downstairs, and he says, "I hope my pets enjoy it today. It might be the last time. My own dogs are hungry for some fresh meat." She starts to cry, and is thinking to herself, it's not over, we're okay. It's not over, it's not over, it's not over. But it's day 21. It's the last day. And this time, their forced situation is a lot different. It's actually pleasurable. Like, they both kind of get into it and are like Dean, obviously, Dean and Cora, when he's forced to do things with her, they actually start making out and enjoying it. And he even gets her off, and it's kind of crazy. And then afterwards, when Dean goes back over to get chained to his pole again, he decides, F it, all or nothing, baby, and starts attacking Earl. Is able to dive down, tackle Earl, the gun falls away, he pushes it away, and then he literally beats this man to death, so badly that Cora is begging him to stop. She's like, hey, he's not alive anymore. You gotta chill, man. And he still just keeps going. To the point that Earl's body is identified through dental records. He was unrecognizable. Hey, man, I mean, it's not funny. It's really tragic. It's really bad, but kind of deserved it. Probably one of the better ways for him to go, you know what I mean? But whatever, he eventually stops, and he, gets Cora unlocked from her thing. They go up the stairs, and there's a landline, so they're able to call 911, and Dean is just washing his hands in the sink. Even after all of the blood is off, he just is washing them until his hands bleed, and he's obviously having some PTSD from what happened. When the cops finally come, right, they see the lights coming, they go outside. I didn't say it earlier, so also when she went to go and run outside, the house is in the middle of a field, acres upon acres. They are completely alone in this giant area, really just out in the middle of nowhere. So they see the cops coming, so they're walking out to the cops, and there's obviously them, there's EMTs, there's news, the news stations are coming there as well, because obviously this is all over the place. These guys were missing for 3 weeks. And then his knuckles graze against my own like a soft kiss, a knowing touch, a promise. I feel his fingers interlaced with mine. We stand there, hand in hand, watching as EMTs and police officers move toward us in a slow motion movie. I hold on to him. He's still my lifeline. He's still all I have. We're in this together. Okay. Chapter 13 begins part 2 of the book. And this section of the book is from Dean's POV, which is very surprising. All of the other one has been strictly from Cora's, and so I was not expecting a POV swap. But he is going to Mandy's parents' house with her. This is the first time that he will be seeing them since he got back. It's been, I think, 2 weeks or something. He's obviously still very clearly not doing well, and we continue to get these really weird references in ways that Mandy is talked about. Her fake eyelashes, her microbladed eyebrows, how heavy her makeup is, that she doesn't dress appropriately for the weather because she wants to look cute. And it really rubbed me the wrong way in the sense of I don't know if maybe the author did such a good job creating a character that I don't like, that it just made me upset. Or the fact that it felt like we were pitting two women against each other, and it was the super cliche, feminine type versus the not like other girls thing. I don't know. I just, it was weird. He goes into the house and he says, they are like my second parents, right? Mandy and Cora's parents. They're like my second parents. My own father passed away almost 12 years ago from a heart attack, and my mother is in the dementia ward at Sunrise Assisted Living. I spent most of my high school afternoons here, studying with Mandy, playing board games, laughing our way through karaoke nights, and eating home-cooked meals. Bridget is the mom, and Cora loved cooking together. Their meatloaf was one of my favorites. Bridget places her kind hands against my cheeks, cradling my face like I'm her very own son. I should have been 5 days ago. December 5th was supposed to be our wedding day. Instead, I spent 13 hours buried beneath my covers, ignoring Mandy's phone calls, and only getting up to take a piss and munch on stale saltine crackers. He is going through the niceties and the small talk with the mom and Mandy, and he says Mandy is chattering on about her shift at the hair salon like it's another ordinary day in Normalville. Cora's there. She wasn't supposed to be, but she last second decided to show up, and so he looks up as he sees her coming through the back door. I want to run to her. I want to take her in my arms and whisper into her ear that everything is going to be okay. We survived. It's over. but I don't. I can lie to Mandy and her parents and my friends and my boss and my therapist, but I can't lie to her. They have dinner. He's zoning out, staring at his food, just like pushing the meatloaf around and not really eating anything, when the mention of a baby and a pregnancy snaps him out of it. He realizes that Mandy is freaking out about saying this whole baby thing and is saying it and apologizing to Cora. Uh-oh. It's super awkward, and he says, "Are you pregnant, Cora?" Her head finally jerks toward me, alarmed at the sound of my voice addressing her for the first time in weeks. I watch her haunted eyes swirl with grief and confusion and sadness and everything in between, but the eye contact doesn't last. She ducks her head with fluttering lashes. "I was," she says softly, so soft I almost don't hear her. Then she pins her eyes back on Mandy. "I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to talk about any of this." Cora pushes back from the table and stands up, scratching at her wrist and making a quick escape from the dining room to the staircase. I follow, not caring if it looks strange or inappropriate. My instincts tell me to follow her. I've spent an embarrassing amount of time over the last 2 weeks just staring at my phone, just telling myself to dial her number and send her a quick text, just to check in, just to make sure that she's okay. Instead, I've been a coward, getting my inside information from Mandy and avoiding Cora just like I'm avoiding everything else in my life. He says, "What do you mean you're not pregnant anymore?" My HCG levels were high enough to indicate a pregnancy had occurred, but there was nothing on the ultrasound. So they told me it was either a chemical pregnancy or I miscarried early, likely when Earl kicked me until he broke 6 of my ribs and then tossed me down a flight of stairs like I was a bag of trash. They're talking a little bit more about this, and the mom comes in. She opens the door. She's like, "Are you guys okay?" He says, "Yeah, we're just catching up, like we're 2 old friends reconnecting over margaritas." Nope, just chatting about R and abuse and miscarriages, wondering how in the we're ever going to move past this and just be us again. In chapter 14, he's at his house and Mandy is visiting. I blink into the yellow light, not fully registering her question, even though I heard it. I stare at the head of broccoli, fairly certain that I can make out a vague outline of Pat Sajak if I just tilt my head a little to the left. Is he still alive? Is Wheel of Fortune still a thing? "Dean, did you hear me?" And I just thought this was such a good thing of like trauma response and like that level of zoning out. It happens quite a bit in this book. I thought this was so well done. Again, I was really happy with this. So he goes to the couch, Mandy's next to him, and she grazes her supersized fingernails that resemble talons along my knee, which again, I'm just highlighting some of the ways Mandy was talked about. I also get he's in a trauma response and really not liking Mandy right now, and affection and attention and whatnot, and it's just kind of is what it is, but it's just weird. Anyway, she asks him, like, "What can I do to help you? Like, what can I do for you?" I think of all of the things that she can do, but she won't like any of them. Go home, stay home, give me some fucking space. I pinch the bridge of my nose, guilt soaring through me in waves. I hate that I'm pushing away my girlfriend of 15 years. "You were only down there for 3 weeks, Dean," Mandy continues, still avoiding my eyes. "I thought you would, like bounce back by now." "Only 3 weeks. Oh, Jesus. So that kind of pisses him off a little bit, which is understandable. Like, that's such a crappy response. But yeah, he hasn't even kissed her, like, since he got home. He hasn't kissed her. He hasn't been interested in anything physical with her. He hasn't told her, nor has Cora. Neither of them have said anything about him assaulting her and that he was forced to do so, right? Like, that is the secret that they are kind of taking to their graves, that they don't want to admit out loud to anybody, and they don't want to, like, complicate the situation further, okay? So she doesn't know that happened. She doesn't know that he did anything, and that's why he's all fucked up mentally about all of this. Oh my gosh. Mandy goes home that night, and Cora can't sleep, and so Cora ends up texting him and asking to visit him, like, if she can just be around somebody. And they end up sitting on the couch and they just talk about things. "They're searching for more bodies," Cora says in a low, shaky breath. "They've uncovered a bunch of bones buried on his property, and they're trying to identify the victims now." She says it doesn't really feel like Christmas. He puts on some Christmas music, and eventually she lays on his lap and falls asleep. Cora falls asleep a few minutes later with "I'll Be Home for Christmas" echoing in our ears, warming us up, taming our tortured souls, and I know that I'll be perfectly content if this is all I get for Christmas this year. In chapter 15, it's a flashback to last year's Christmas. Cora got him a gift. It's the first time they've ever given each other Christmas gifts, and he didn't get her anything, so he feels really bad about it. Until he opens the gift, and it is a copy of Mice and Men. But the pages are blank. Every single one of them. My head snaps up and I twist the book around, feeling bad that she ordered a defective one. Slight issue, I tell her. Cora sits up straight, blinking slow. She stares at me in what looks to be utter confusion before replying, crap, I didn't think you would notice. And he's thinking, oh hell, next Christmas, it's on. Oh. But when they leave that night, she does give him an actual copy of Mice and Men and says that he would probably enjoy it, which is a crazy sentence. I don't know if you know what Of Mice and Men is about. I'm really thinking, this side tangent, I'm really thinking of doing like little mini rant reviews about classic books like that, and like Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, Death of a Salesman, those types of things. Whatever, just random really, really popular classics, and just doing like mini rant review, like discussions about them. Be like, in case you missed it, this is the classic that everybody else has read except for you. Because that's how it is for me. Like, I've never read it until recently. Would that be something you guys would care about? It wouldn't replace my rant reviews. I would still do rant reviews every Thursday. But that would be like a little mini extra thing on, like, you know, every other Tuesday or something. I would just do a little goofy classic review. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. Anyway, she gives him an actual copy of this book. Oh, that's what I was saying. If you don't know what that book is about, I don't want to spoil it for you, but that shit is crazy. That shit is crazy to say that somebody would like it. Not that it's bad, it's just really sad. We cut to current day Christmas. She gets overwhelmed, like all the family members are over and, you know, a bunch of extended family and friends, and they're opening presents, and she just gets overwhelmed. So she goes back upstairs to find some peace and quiet, and after a while, Dean follows her to give her a gift. And she feels really bad that she didn't get him anything. And they've never gotten each other anything, right? Other than the prank last year. And so this is very, very unexpected. And he says, that's okay. Maybe we'll get it right eventually and get each other gifts at the same time. And it's cute. She opens the little box that he gave her. It's beautiful, Dean, but it's too much. Cora glances up at me with misted eyes, then looks back down at the necklace. She removes it from the box, letting the delicate chain dance over her fingers as she holds it up and gazes at the gilded heart. Open it. It's a locket. Cora blinks, surprised. I can see her fingers tremble as she unclasps the two pieces of gold and fixes her eyes to the inner contents. Still beating. Oh, I was thinking you can wear it over your heart as a constant reminder of everything that you've survived. As long as it's still beating, you're okay. Oh, that's the name of the book. They did the thing, guys. The alternate cover, there's a more recent cover of like two hands holding each other and like a black chain around it. But the previous cover used to be like a golden locket in water. That's what I always saw the book cover as, which is very, very relevant. What a cool, meaningful cover. After the party, though, he is super drunk. He's been getting drunk all the time lately. Like, that's how he's coping with everything that's happening, is just becoming an alcoholic. Mandy takes him to his house, like, drops him off. He passes out, but he has a horrible nightmare. And he wakes up to Cora calling him because she also had a horrible nightmare. And she's crying her eyes out, and he rushes over to her house to comfort her. Her bottom lip quivers as we stare at each other in the doorway, only a few feet apart. I took sleeping pills. They're supposed to help me pass out and forget, but the nightmares, Dean, I can't even... God, they're so horrible. I start to move forward, her tears a magnet to my aching heart. Come here. He hugs her. He ends up carrying her to bed, and we situate ourselves onto the queen-sized bed, and I only let go of her to pull the blankets up over our bodies. Then my arms envelop her once again. She's stoned on sleeping pills, and I'm drunk off my ass, and we're messy, damaged humans clinging to each other as we battle through this storm together. But it's okay, because we're together. In chapter 16, I'll just go ahead and read you this. Earl Timothy Hubbard. I finally find the strength to research the case, my case, our case. It's made international headlines, branding Earl with the nickname The Matchmaker. He'll be going down in history as a renowned serial killer after 11 bodies were discovered buried beneath his vast acreage. His victims were taken in pairs, male and female, with no blood relation or romantic connection. Earl had boxes and boxes of trophies, trinkets, and evidence stored in his attic, including Cora's wallet and my leather jacket and car keys. He had journal entries devoted to each couple, though none of the detailed contents have been released to the media. It's been alleged that, based on the diaries discovered, Earl groomed his victims into developing feelings for one another, and when he felt like they had successfully fallen in love, he would murder them in cold blood. He got off on watching his victims mourn over their lover being tortured to death. I think back to that fateful night, dwelling on every little thing I did wrong, each wrong turn and fatal slip of the tongue. She's your girl. Earl's question seemed harmless at the time. I had no idea I was sealing our fate when I replied with a firm hell no. I should have fucking lied, but getting under Cora's skin was more important. Pissing her off was more fun. I had no idea I put the nails in our goddamn coffins. He closes out of the article and he's just reflecting on how horrible that he's feeling. And he gets a text from Mandy that she's having the party that night. It's New Year's Eve. So they're having the party over at her place. And he's dreading it. He's dreading dealing with people and seeing people. And we get a comment, though, about how when Cora finally untangled herself from my arms and our eyes met, there was an unspoken promise that we would never speak of it again. So we haven't. And sometimes we don't speak much at all. Simply knowing the other one is on the opposite end of the line, breathing, alive, safe, and warm is solace in itself. So he and Cora have been like calling each other to fall asleep too. Like just having each other on the line. Oh my God. Anyway, he goes to the New Year's Eve party that night, and Mandy is trying to set Cora up with this random dude. And he is obviously upset about this. Not really willing to admit it to himself about maybe the jealousy that he's having toward Cora and the feelings that he's developing, but he immediately shuts it down. He's like, she doesn't need to date anybody. She just went through a lot of stuff. Like, you blah, 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 blah. Mandy says, I'm her wingman, dude. Chill out. Okay. Throughout the party, he has a couple beers and he's watching Cora and this guy flirt, and he sees how uncomfortable Cora is. So he goes over, makes a whole scene, telling the guy to leave her alone. She eventually pulls Dean into another room and she's like, hey, what the fuck? I don't need a babysitter. Like, chill out, dude. What even is your problem? You think of me as a babysitter? I tried to downplay the audacity in my voice by looking at my feet. Cora is silent for a long time, prompting me to glance up. I find her eyes fixed on me. We hold for a beat before she replies, I have no idea what you are to me. At first, I'm offended. I'm outraged. After all that we've been through, I'm about to respond, flustered and angry, when I realize she's absolutely right. What the fuck are we? We'll never be friends. We're no longer enemies. We can't be lovers. Where does that leave us? Soldiers at war. Kindred spirits. Two lost, wandering souls with nothing and everything in common. Or maybe not. Maybe we aren't something meant to be labeled. We transcend titles, and that, I fear, is the most powerful thing of all. I lower my gaze to Cora's chest, noting the locket dangling between her breasts. She carries a piece of me with her. She carries a lot of my pieces with her. Oh my God. In chapter 17, we get a flashback to 3 years ago at the bar. It's a bunch of them hanging out, right? It's Dean and Mandy, it's Cora and Brandon, because they were still together at the time. It's this guy named Reed, and then Reed's girlfriend or something. Cora is giving Dean a hard time about checking out the waitress. He says, hey, I wasn't checking her out. Cora is convinced that I sleep around because I'm a giant jerkface, and I guess cheating goes along with being a giant jerkface. But the truth is, I've only ever been with Mandy. We were each other's firsts when I was a sophomore and she was a junior, and we've been together ever since. We took a 3-month break in college, but I still never strayed. It didn't feel right. In the middle of the hangout that night, he's realizing how content he is. He's got a girl he loves, he has this like banter with Cora and everything's great and everything is just, he's happy in life. And he goes to do something and it ends up being mayonnaise, like Cora pranked him and put a bunch of mayonnaise in a thing. Or it was ranch. I think she told him it was like a ranch, and so he dipped like a fry in it and ate it, and then he like was gagging because he hated it so much, which was interesting because like through the second part we've heard more and more about the pranks that Cora has pulled on him versus the first part where she's like, he tortured me and it was terrible and all he ever did was bully me and prank me, and it feels very like unreliable narrator-esque. Because in his POV, she's super in on it, and she's dishing it out just as much as he was. It's just interesting thing to know. Regardless, though, that's the night that the girls leave. He and Brandon stay behind, right? Dean and Brandon stay back. They're watching a sports game. Brandon goes to the bathroom. Dean decides to leave. When he's going through the parking lot, he finds Brandon making out with a dude. That'd be crazy. Making out with a girl. Dean confronts him, beats him up a little bit, does what we said earlier, right? He tells Brandon to break up with her, say that it was Dean's fault because she already hates him and he doesn't want her to feel bad and she hates him anyway, so it's fine and whatever. Okay? Cool story, bro. We go into current day and he's about to go on a double date, he and Mandy, with Cora and the guy from the New Year's party. This is like a couple weeks later, days later, whatever. They're about to go on a double date. He is obviously very, very pissed off about this. He doesn't want to deal with it, doesn't want to deal with watching this guy flirt with her. He already yelled at him once. And so they're talking. It's the four of them at dinner. You know, they're chit-chatting. It's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. The dude gets up to go to the bathroom, and he says, I don't like him. Why? He's been a total gentleman. It's obvious that he just wants to screw the damaged local celebrity. Jesus Christ! So Cora starts crying. She's like, you think that's all I'm worth? Like, I'm not good enough for people to want me for me? Oh my God. He realizes that he put his foot in his mouth, so he goes to the bathroom to get away from the situation. Runs into dude in the hallway, confronts dude again, and dude says, look, man, I'm not in for competition. You obviously are in love with her. Like, you got some weird shit going on. Like, I can't believe that you're hitting on your fiance's sister, whatever. Like, you just need to admit that you love her. He's like, I don't. It's not like that. Dude says, okay, it is though. Walks out of the hallway. At the end of the hallway, Cora was standing there listening. She goes to leave. Dean follows. She's in her car in the parking lot of the bar, bawling her eyes out. Dean gets into the passenger seat. Cora Bell, please talk to me. Her shoulders are trembling as she plants both hands on the steering wheel, squeezing until her knuckles go white. More tears spill from her eyes. Fine, she sniffles, looking up at me, eyes made of emerald flames. We're done. Whatever this is, whatever is between us, it's done. Over. I thought that I needed you to heal, but this is toxic. All you're doing is holding me underwater, and I can't breathe. I can't heal when I'm constantly reminded of my trauma every time I look at you. Cora inhales sharply, ragged breaths as she finishes. I thought you could fix me, but you're killing me, Dean. There's some awkward silence until he says, what happened between us that last day? She says, nothing, and to leave it alone. The flickering light that I've carried with me since that day, since the day this all began, the hope of better days, the glimmer of promise that someday, one day, everything will be bright again, extinguishes right then and there. I feel cold and dark and empty and so very alone. He gets out of Cora's car, and as he's going back into the bar, he sees Mandy. She was standing there watching their entire conversation, watching how close that they were talking and crying and blah, blah, blah. She is pissed. She's like, I can't believe you. Like, there's obviously something going on between you two. Like, you're a piece of shit. She starts crying. She goes over to her car to leave. Her and Mandy and Cora both end up driving away, and he's drunk as shit in the parking lot. And he says, it's fine, I say, stumbling back until my foot hits the curb and I collapse into a patch of grass. It's okay. I've slept in worse places. Oh my God. In chapter 18, Mandy ended up coming back for him. Like, she couldn't actually leave him alone to pass out in the bar parking lot. So he wakes up in her bed, in Mandy's bed, right? And she's sitting there at the edge of it, and she's like, hey, like, you have a real problem. I'm sorry, he says. And then he's thinking, I've been saying that word a lot lately. I'm sorry, I'm still fighting a battle I can't win. I'm sorry, I'm a mess, drinking away my problems. I'm sorry, my head is filled with dark, depressing thoughts that often consume me. I'm sorry, I can't touch the woman I'm supposed to marry. I'm sorry, I can't fix the woman who won't let go of my heart. I'm sorry, I keep f***ing up. I'm sorry, I'm wasting my second chance. Mandy says, you are sick. You have PTSD. You were tossing and turning all night and sometimes yelling and shaking the bed. You haven't figured out your car situation or when you're going back to work or how you're going to pay for anything when your savings runs out. You drink all day, every day. You haven't said a word about the wedding. You won't touch me or kiss me. In fact, it seems like you don't even want me around. Mandy ducks her head, biting back tears. You're not okay, and I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to help me either. I think I just need some time. And she says, do you need time to figure it out, or do you need time away from me? And it's very sad. She goes on to go to work and drop him back off at his house, and it's just left in this very awkward limbo stage. In chapter 19, he got a rental car. He finally figured out that situation, right? Because when Earl kidnapped them, he was in his own car, and then Earl destroyed his vehicle, so he hasn't had one, whatever. Finally talked to the insurance company. He has a rental. It's his first day back at work. Like, he's finally back. He is a union laborer for like heavy machinery. He does like heavy machinery work, which I love. Mandy is a hairstylist. He does machinery stuff. And then Cora, I haven't talked about it yet, She's a school teacher. I love these normal jobs, these normal people. This is so cool. He's in his car after he got done working, though, and I'm also fidgety and edgy from my alcohol detox. I haven't touched a drop of liquor since the double date from hell over a week ago at the Ore. I'm trying. I'm really fucking trying. And he gets a phone call from Cora that says, hey, Blizzard is having seizures and she's not responding. Like, Blizzard's not doing very good. We're at the veterinarian. Like, can you come? He shows up immediately. Obviously, he rushes over. Mandy's at work. She said it was too hard to be here, and mom or dad are gonna wait out here in the lobby, obviously. But did you want to come with me in there to say goodbye? Of course. I don't hesitate. We rescued this dog together, and I'll be damned if I'm not with Cora when Blizzard takes her last breath. So, geez Louise, I'm about to cry. So they go back into the room, right? Blizzard's kind of unresponsive. They're alone in this room together, kind of having their little bits of goodbye, and then they'll hit the button and the vet will come in and, put Blizzard to sleep. So they're back in this room having a little having this conversation beforehand. She was acting funny the night that Mandy and I were getting ready for her birthday party. She was bumping into things, walking in circles, panting more than usual. Cora whispers, our fingers brushing together as we stroke Blizzard's tummy. Do you think that she was sick and waited for us to come home? My note says, bro, don't do this to me. Cora, okay? So he says, yeah, I think so. It's so sad. Blizzard gets put down. Afterward, Dean just starts crying. He is absolutely sobbing, and Cora comforts him. Cora leans up on her knees, and then ever so softly, without warning, presses her lips against my mouth. Just barely. It's a feather-like kiss. Oh my God. Afterward, he drives her home. I guess the parents drove her there or something. I'm not really sure what the context is, but she ends up driving home with Dean. And when they get to her house, it's snowing outside. It's a blizzard. It's her, Dean. She's saying goodbye. I think my goddamn heart might explode. I suck in my emotions, blowing them back out into the chilly air. I'm not sure what's got me more choked up. Blizzard's parting gift to us are watching the way that Cora is floating around in a clumsy circle, sheathed in white, looking utterly enraptured and lost in the moment. Healing. She looks like healing. Oh my gosh. So they go into her house, and they're just sitting on the couch, hanging out, and he is about to pass out. Like, he is so utterly exhausted, right? He just got done with his first day back at work. It's a very emotionally draining day also. He's just tired. I start to drift away when I feel her lips against my cheek, just as light as before. A tickle, a whisper, a fleeting kiss. Healing. She feels like healing. God. I think he wakes up to her screaming, right? He fell asleep on the couch, and then she went to bed in her bedroom or to go and take a nap in the other room. And he wakes up to her screaming because she's having a nightmare. And, he wakes her up from said nightmare and is trying to comfort her. And she's apologizing and, apologizing that she did this to them. And, he has to deal with all of this. Cora, listen to me. I say, still holding her face in my hands, still clinging to her like it's the very last time. Those were the worst 3 weeks of my entire goddamn life, and they will haunt me forever. I swallow. But I'm glad I was there, and I would do it all again 1,000 times over just to keep you from going through that shit alone. I'm glad that I was there with you. Oh my God. I sing Hey Jude as I cradle the back of her head with one hand, feeling her tiny hairs tickle my chin with every breathy note. We fall asleep curled up together, clinging to one another, heartbeats aligned, but this time there are no sleeping pills. There is no alcohol. There are no vices or excuses or things to blame except ourselves and the confusing feelings that have burrowed inside of our hearts. And while there are still so many questions swimming around my brain, I finally feel like I have an answer to one of them. I know what I have to do. Oh no. Oh no. In chapter 20, it's 15 years earlier, and again, I cannot explain to you enough how much I love a jumbled timeline. I love a jumbled timeline. 15 years ago, it's Cora's first day in class. She's being introduced to their high school class. The class mutters a bored hello as I continue to plan out a future in my mind. Homecoming and prom are a given. It would be great if we end up going to the same college together, but long-distance relationships aren't so bad. We'll make it work. We'll be married by 30, buy a big house in the suburbs, and have 3 blonde-haired babies by 35. We'll travel a lot, then move right by the ocean when we retire. I wonder if she likes the ocean. Cora glances in my direction, and our eyes meet for the very first time. Green. Angels have green eyes. She smiles at me, that same sweet smile, and this one is all mine. It fills me and lights me on fire, and I just know I'm going to marry this girl one day. Oh my God, it's a 15-year-old boy. I don't think any of them actually think that, but that's cute regardless. I'm kidding. Teenagers are very emotional. Their feelings are always so extreme because it's the first time they've ever felt them. It's so cute. Anyway, it's current day though, and Mandy is talking to him and he just keeps zoning out, and eventually he says, shit, this is the hardest conversation of my life. Dean, my name comes out as a tiny cry, a plea. Don't do this. He goes on to say that they're growing apart and it's just like a comfort thing between them. There's no spark, it's the whole I love you but I'm not in love with you thing. And she asks if it's because of Cora, and he says no. Change was forced upon me. I was forced to rot for 3 weeks in a serial killer's basement, and it really puts shit into perspective. He's like, I just want to feel a lot, and I just don't feel much in this relationship. She's just crying, and he goes to leave, because he's like, there's really nothing else to say. Like, there's not any changing my mind about this. Like, there's nothing for us to keep trying about. Like, this is it. Mandy, Mandy, sweet as candy. I whisper, echoing the rhyme that I would sing to her when we were teenagers. I don't regret you, and I pray that you can forgive me someday and we can be friends, because my heart won't be the same without you in it. But I understand if you can't, and I respect that. Her eyes are shut tight, weighed down by the burden I am handing her. I know this isn't the happily ever after that you imagined, and I'm so sorry for that. But I promise you, you'll get it, and when you do, you'll look back, and all of this will make a hell of a lot more sense. Okay. Okay. In chapter 21, Cora is texting Dean, and she says, I think I did something a little crazy. He says, uh-oh, what happened? I sort of adopted a serial killer's 2 dogs. Meet Jude and Penny Lane. 20 minutes later, I'm standing in her living room. And she adopted Earl's dogs. The dogs that he was gonna feed them to, supposedly. She was like, yeah, they were stuck at the pound and nobody wanted them. Like, he says, aren't they messed up? I realized that was the wrong terminology when Cora's head snaps back over to me. Not any more messed up than us. Are you saying we don't deserve to be loved and cared about because of what happened? She got me there. He then goes on to tell her about the breakup, says that he broke up with Mandy, and Cora goes crazy. She is pissed. She says, you're a stupid coward, too scared to put in the work. Did you even go to couples counseling? Anything? Did you even try? Dean? You were supposed to marry her. How could you do this? Cora cries as the floodgates open and her tears begin to fall. You were happy. You were happy before. She trails off, rolling her jaw and dropping her eyes to the floor. She blames herself, right? She's like, everything sucks now. Like, your life is ruined. Mandy's life is ruined because of what happened, blah, blah, blah. It's really sad. He ends up kissing her, and this time there is no mistaking what it means. There are no apologies. Because I hate you. He says, no, you don't. Just admit it. You love me. You love me, there's something here between us. She's in denial about it. She keeps saying no about the whole thing, but is kissing him back, and it's very clear that there's just complicated feelings. She can pretend to hate me. If it diminishes even a fraction of her pain, she can fucking pretend all she wants, but I know it's love. It has to be, because if this isn't love, then I'm certain it doesn't exist. In chapter 22, he goes to visit his mother in the, assisted living home, because he's all torn up and he only would see her maybe once a month or so, maybe less than that. And this is the first time he's seen her since he's back from his traumatic event. My mother never really recovered from the loss of his father, and her mental state deteriorated over the next few years. Her memory began to decline at only 52 years old, and I always thought to myself how horrible it must be to forget the love of your life. Now I can't help but wonder if it was the only way for her to cope. Maybe there is no recovering from something like that. Maybe there is no healing or moving on. There is no forgetting, unless you truly forget. Oh my God. He goes into her room. She's just watching TV and calling him the wrong names. She obviously has no idea who he is. She's just staring at the TV and invites him to come and sit next to her, and he does. My fingers weave through my dark hair, recalling the way that my mother used to stroke my scalp with her fingertips to alleviate my stress or calm up my nerves. I miss that sometimes. I haven't said it, but throughout the entirety of the book, it kept talking about how he would run his hand through his hair, or he would touch the hair on the back of his neck or just rub his head, Anytime that there was something stressful going on, he did that. And it was just this kind of mannerism that came up quite a bit. And so at the 50% mark, to be hey, here's another little subtle breadcrumb. of why that happens and why he does that. But like, it's, again, just good writing. Nothing is spelt out and calling the reader stupid. Nothing is overdone. It's all just very nuanced and well woven into the story. Regardless, he goes on to tell his mom about everything that's going on, like knowing that she won't reply or have any idea what's really happening, but he just needs to get it off of his chest. But surprisingly, she starts to run her fingers through his hair to comfort him, like when he was a little boy. And she says, "Every love story is worth writing, no matter how messy it might be." Holly says absently, still stroking my hair, "I would like to read your book." Holly reaches for my hand, resting on my thigh, clasping it inside of her cool palm, still enamored by the pictures on the television. "I had a terrible nightmare once. It was a lot different than yours, though." She squeezes my fingers and releases a small sigh. "I was all alone." I wait for her to continue. I wait for the story to unfold, the horrors to play out, the nightmare to come to life. But she doesn't say anything else, and I realize that was the nightmare. Okay, that's really sad. Jesus Christ. As I drive home that afternoon, I think about all of the things that I said, about the things that she said, about how sometimes all we need is a good dose of perspective. There are worse nightmares than this. I could be all alone. I decide right then and there that I will start visiting my mother more often. No more hiding, no more fear, no more guilt. Because as sad as my mother's condition is, there is nothing sadder than walking up to that blank, empty door. At the home, there was like a bunch of decorations and photos and cutesy stuff for each of the patients. And then his mom's door was just completely empty because he's the only family she has and he never goes and sees her. Oh my God. That night, he's watching TV and trying to go to sleep when the power goes out. And so he immediately texts Cora to make sure that she's okay. Obviously, she's afraid of the dark after living in pitch black in the basement and everything happening. It's very triggering for her. Like, she sleeps with the light on in the bedroom. Like, she has all of the lights on all the time. So he texts her to see if she's okay. She says that she can't find a flashlight and that her phone is about to die. And so he rushes over. And they end up laying together in the bed in the dark. And I want to keep touching her. The last time that we were trapped in the dark, we couldn't even touch our toes together. They haven't talked in a week since their kiss, and when they're laying in bed, she tells him that the worst night of her life was the first night that he R'd her and didn't say anything to her afterward. It was so quiet and so dark, and then she says that he made 2 confessions, right? Liking her and the whole Brandon thing, and she only made 1. So he says, "Do you have another that you would like to make?" She says, "The only time that I felt safe was when you were inside of me." What in the fuck? Obviously that turns into a spice scene. I was like, what in the hell? It's cute, it's romantic, it's like a well-written spice thing, whatever. It's okay. I was just like, what is going on? What a hell of an intro to this. In chapter 23, it's the morning after, and he's thinking, morning afters are so confusing when you have no idea what's supposed to come after. She is ignoring him. She's like pretending to sleep, and then when he finally says good morning, she like blows him off and says that she has errands to run and is just being very, very dismissive. And they get in a little bickery back and forth fight because she's feeling like a shitty person and like, how could she do this to Mandy? He's arguing and he's like, hey, like we're meant to be like us. This was inevitable. If we stopped this, I still wouldn't go back to Mandy. Like this has nothing to do with her. Like you didn't break us apart. Like, yeah, I wouldn't go back to her if we stopped this. And she says, okay, I guess we'll find out. We're over. I am not doing this with you. Oh my God. And so he storms out of the house. I grab my coat off the back of the couch, slip on my shoes, and slam the door shut behind me as I walk out of her house. Oh no. So he's stewing angry, and she's doing her own thing at her house, and she calls him late that night, quoting of mice and men, and her words are really slurred and weird and very ominous. And she goes to hang up and he says, wait, I'm worried about you, Corabelle. Talk to me. I do think we could have been great. She finishes, if you weren't a lion and I was not a mouse. The call disconnects and I'm left staring at my phone, my insides twisting into knots and my heart telling me that she is not okay. Something is off. Something is wrong. He rushes to her house. The door is left unlocked. The dogs are freaking out. And he finds her unresponsive in her bed next to an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Jesus Christ. Chapter 24 begins part 3. We are in the home stretch of the book. We get Cora's POV from that day, like after Dean left. And she started to spiral, thinking about how scared she is about everything. Scared that she'll lose everything. My sister, my parents, myself. I'm scared I'll drown. I'm safer here at shore. She's just losing it when Mandy randomly shows up at her door, unannounced, uninvited, with food. And there is a lot of passive-aggressive comments between the two of them. And eventually, Mandy makes a comment about the dogs. She's like, oh, you got pets? Cora says that they're the pets from, the basement, like from the basement house. And Mandy says, that's literally insane. And also, you seem to be having a hard time letting go of things that connect you to that basement. Very clearly, not talking about the dogs. So, again, more passive aggression and Cora just trying to play it off. And Mandy says, so what fucked up shit were you forced to do? She asks the question so casually, so nonchalant. She says, I don't want to talk about it, okay? It's personal and traumatic, and I'm trying to forget that those 3 weeks even ever happened. Mandy says, something happened down there, Cora. I need to know. Nothing. It doesn't matter. She says, tell me. She says, I can't. The tears are spilling over. My voice is catching and breaking. I can't. Mandy is about to bite back when my cell phone vibrates between us on the island, resting only a foot away. We both look at it. Dean's name lights up the screen with a text message. Oh, shit. They fight over the phone. Mandy gets a hold of it, reads the text message from Dean. And the text message, you ask, says, don't want to fight, scared. I get it. Last night was everything. We'll go slower. We can start over. We're in this together. Mandy says, what happened last night, Cora? Did you sleep with him? Did you fuck my fiance? Oh my Jesus. Only a heartbeat passes when her hand flies out and connects with my face. I inhale sharp, startled breath and the sting of her slap rattling my bones. Mandy has never hit me before. I've never hit her. I said, bro, this is such a fucked up situation, but also fuck this bitch. But really though, dude, Mandy doesn't know that she got assaulted in the basement. Like, that's something to know, right? Like, she has no idea. I don't think. I'm pretty sure she doesn't at this point. Oh God, this is just so crappy. Everything sucks. There's no winners here. This is all just bad. So Mandy slaps her. She takes a step back, shaking her head furiously. I can't believe that you're my sister. I can't believe you were going to be my maid of honor. Mandy wipes at the stray tears lingering on her cheekbones. You're disgusting. You're trash. You're the most selfish person that I've ever met, and I never want to see you again. Mom and Dad will disown you over this. I gape at her, my mouth parted. Mandy spits out one final barb before storming away. I hope his dick was worth it. I just want to die. All of those weeks fighting so hard to live, and for what? Hell followed me home. It lives inside of me, housing all of my demons and ghosts and unforgivable flaws. Okay, I'm gonna read you that again. That was really good. All of those weeks fighting so hard to live, and for what? Hell followed me home. It lives inside of me, housing all of my demons and ghosts and unforgivable flaws. God damn. Chapter 25. She wakes up in the hospital. Her parents are surrounding her. She was knocked out for 4 days, and Mandy is there, but she's downstairs getting coffee. She asks where Dean is, and they said, hey, just to protect Mandy, we said he probably shouldn't be around right now. The dad is talking. He says, your sister filled us in on what happened, and she feels responsible. I know this is going to be an uphill battle for the both of you, and your mother and I are not taking anybody's side here. We love you both. Our hearts are breaking for each of you. He kisses my knuckles. We're just so grateful that you made it through. Mandy comes in, the parents leave, they have a little bit of back and forth and apologizing and whatnot, and Mandy says, I don't know if I'm going to be able to forgive you. There's stuff between us, but I don't want you to die. I still want you to be alive. But seriously, Core, don't you ever pull that shit again. Get help, find a new therapist if you need to, join a support group, go on medication. Just don't ever feel like we'd be better off without you. I nod again. She gets up to go and leave. I'll just read it. She goes to leave. I'm not sure if this makes it better or worse, but I think he really does love you. Mandy walks out, a small cry escaping her lips, and I start sobbing into the itchy bed covers. Mandy has been painted a monster, right, through the entirety of this book. Even later on, she'll continue to be painted as a monster. But I do genuinely feel so bad for her. There's no winners here. This is just such a sad situation. Cora falls asleep, though. When she wakes back up, Dean is there, and he cradles her, and, he apologizes and, says that he's happy that she survived and all this other stuff, and as she sleeps in his arms. I'm still not sure where the words come from. Were they a whisper on the wind in a magical dream, or were they spoken into my hair, a soft confession, a haunting promise of everything that will never come to be? Either way, I let the words sink in. They breathe new life into me as I fall into a restful sleep. I love you. In chapter 26, her best friend Lily, she's kind of been brought up periodically throughout the book, invites her out for coffee, and it's the first time in a couple of weeks, like after the whole like unaliving attempt, that she gets out of the house. And Lily says, also, just between you and me, so she gets Lily filled in on what happened and this whole like Mandy thing and why she tried to unalive herself and the stuff with Dean and blah, blah, blah. And Lily says, also, just between you and me, if the roles were reversed, Mandy wouldn't hesitate. This grabs my attention and I jerk my head back. What makes you think that? Call it a gut instinct. Lily flips her braid over her shoulder with a shrug. Let's put it this way. Did she or did she not sleep with that guy that you were crushing on during those few months her and Dean split up? Ugh. Lily convinces her to go to a bar that night or soon or whatever, like that she needs to get out of the house and go and hang out. So they do, right? Lily and Cora go to a bar. Lily sets her up with like this guy. Dude is mysterious and cute and into her and talking to her and whatever. And they go on the dance floor and she says sorry, like she's a little awkward and, hasn't really done this anytime recently. And he says, no need to apologize, kitten. Understandably, this sends her spiraling, because that's what Earl called her. So she runs out of the club and straight into an Uber to go to Dean's house for comfort. 10 minutes later, I'm standing on his front porch. I knock 4 times before the door swings open and Dean is standing in front of me. And can you guess what happens next? The next day, they're talking or they're texting on a phone call. Eventually, I don't know, I didn't take a note on the time here. It is revealed another survivor of Earl's comes forward. Her name is Tabitha Brighton. She claims that she was abducted by Earl last spring, along with her college professor. They were kept in the basement for 2 months before Earl killed the guy and let her go. Let her go? I repeat, dumbfounded, my heart still rattling my ribs, and I start to tremble. She's lying. She's got to be lying. That man didn't have a single shred of decency inside of him. There's no way that he'd let one of his victims go. I don't know, Cora. It's still a developing news story, but the professor checked out. His name was Matthew Gleason, and he was one of the confirmed bodies found on the property. So in chapter 28, she goes to find Tabitha. She wants to go and meet the other survivor and ends up on her front porch. When Tabitha opens the door and she sees the vacant look in her eye, like the look of trauma, I know right then and there that her story is true, and the guilt eats away at me for even doubting it. I had a feeling that you would find me. Come in. Oh my God. She goes in and tells Cora how she did fall in love with her professor. Like, there was nothing romantic between them beforehand, but they really did fall in love when they were in captivity, and how she's all alone now. And she was jealous when she found out that both Cora and Dean got out and survived. She was incredibly jealous that they had each other to cope with, which is so sad. And she's telling Cora how truly blessed that she is that they both survived. And it's just a wild sentiment. All of this is so crazy. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Tabitha fiddles with the gold fringes on her long-sleeved tunic, a silence settling between us for a few beats. I did. I tried. What? They didn't believe you? Tabitha leans back in the chair, rocking it with her feet. Earl never told us his name, so I had nothing to go on. I had no idea where he was. He knocked me out and dropped me on the side of the road 30 miles away, and I gave my story to detectives and did a composite sketch, but they didn't have any leads. The only thing I had was that basement. You're very brave, I tell her gently, waiting for her eyes to lift to mine. I couldn't go through this alone. Tabitha slips a faint smile, then nods her head over my shoulder to the corner of the room. I'm not entirely alone. A frown pinches my brow, and I twist around, gasping out loud when I catch sight of a baby swing. Oh my God. It's Michael's baby, the professor's. She kept the baby. She was saying how it was like a parting gift from Michael. And what the fuck? Okay, that's cool, I guess. As she walks me out to the door and we say our goodbyes, Tabitha calls after me. Hey, Cora, can you give Dean a message for me? I turn to face her on the snowy pathway. Sure, what is it? Tell him I say thank you for pulverizing that evil son of a bitch. We lock eyes, and I can't help but smile. In chapter 29, it's just Lily coming over. They have some oldie wine and watch movies and girl talk about Dean, and it's just cute. Chapter 30, it has been months, I think, at this point, since everything went down. And Mandy texts her to get ice cream and to talk that Friday, like if she wants to come and hang out. And it's the first time that they've talked since the whole hospital thing. It's just like their birthday traditions, like On each of their birthdays, they go and get ice cream and sit on the swing set out back and talk about life. Obviously, this isn't anyone's birthday, but it's like a late celebration for Mandy's, since obviously she was in captivity when Mandy's birthday actually happened. So they get the ice cream. They're sitting on the swing set. Mandy randomly drops. I cheated on him, you know? I almost dropped my ice cream cone. What? Last summer at Allie's birthday party, Dean had the flu, so I went alone and, ended up effing a dude. Oh my God. I feel like all of this is karma smacking me in the face, and part of me knew deep down I had sealed our fate with that one stupid decision, even though Dean never found out about it. I never thought it would be you. Mandy looks over at me, her eyes glossed over and spearing me with both guilt and disappointment. You've always been the strong one, the lucky one, the good one. Everything you worked for, you got. Everything you put your mind to, you succeeded. You had the smarts and the good grades, the quick wit and the sense of humor, the respectable job, the house. You have your own house, Cor. You're not even 30 and you're killing it. I had to take a GED just to pass high school. I'm barely making ends meet at the hair salon. I've lived in the same crappy 2-bedroom apartment since college. Mandy, all I had was Dean. He was my only trophy, my only success story. She inhales a quick breath and then finishes. I couldn't handle the fact that you had him too. Oh no. So, quite the revelation. She says, hey, I still don't forgive you, but I'm on my way to. We have to have time, and I don't know when that'll come, but I do want to, be sisters again and whatnot. That night, heavy on her mind, right, everything that's going on, and she goes to text Dean. They've gotten into this habit where, every Friday they, hook up. They just kind of hook up. They don't really, talk outside of that very much or talk about emotions or anything. They just kind of get this, angst out on Fridays. So that night, Dean texts her and asks to talk. And she was like, hey, that's perfect. I wanted to talk too. So he comes over, and this time they actually do chat. She opens up about the talk with Mandy and saying sorry and how, she wants to maybe try and make this work with him. And he says, Cora, I'm leaving. His words flip me upside down and I drop his hand. What? A look of pain stretches across Dean's face as he blows out a hard breath. A job transfer came up and I'm taking it. Oh my God. So she's pissed. She's like, you don't really love me. You say that you love me, you say you want this, you say all of these things and you're just gonna leave me? You're not gonna work through this with me? He says, no, this is toxic. You said it yourself. I just keep bringing you down. You need to heal, and you need to heal on your own. I can't be a part of this. I'm ruining your life. He goes to leave, and she says, hold on a second. I reach behind my neck and unclasp my necklace chain, moving towards him. His eyes drift from my face to the gold locket that I'm holding out as I approach him. He's shaking his head, not wanting to believe what he's seeing. I take his hand in mine and outreach his fingers, delicately placing the locket into his palm. He closes his eyes, fisting it, and heaves out a deep breath. I leave him with parting words before I turn away. I wish you fought for me as hard as you fought to get out of that basement. And I swear to God, I want to fight these people. What a horrible thing to say. I know it's all trauma and everybody's healing and everything sucks and it's high emotions and stuff, but oh my God, I hate all of them. I hate the way all of them are handling things. This is so sad. It's so crappy. Chapter 31, she is so torn up about him leaving. She's so incredibly, overwhelmingly sad that it gets to the point where she goes to her parents' house to break down. She just wants her mom to, hold her and cuddle her and support her and stuff, when she was a little kid. So she goes up to her childhood room. Her mom lays next to her, rubbing her arm and just listening to Cora vent about everything that's going on. And the mom says, this reminds me of when you had mono and you were trapped up here for a week, and I would have to come up here and rub your arm, and every day at dinner time I'd bring homemade chicken noodle soup to you in your bedroom. I still remember that soup. It was so good. I began to look forward to it every day. Even on the days I had no appetite, that soup warmed me up and made me smile. I remember that. I loved it. My mother pulls back to find my eyes, a knowing smile stretching across her pretty face. She leans in to kiss my hairline and then whispers, that soup was from Dean. My chest tightens, the air escaping with a sharp gasp. What? He would come over every day after school to study with Mandy, and he would bring you soup. He never made a big deal about it. He acted like it was nothing. She squeezes my arm, noticing my watery, wide-eyed stare. He's always cared about you, Cora. It's gonna take time, but I'm confident that you'll find your way. She kisses my forehead. We hurt for you. We hurt for Mandy. We hurt for Dean. So, with that, Cora is realizing maybe Dean has always cared about her, and she rushes to try and catch him before he leaves. This is like a couple days have passed, right? And so now it's Monday when he's about to leave to go to this like job transfer, or it's Sunday and he's about to go to the job transfer, whatever. She rushes to go and find him. Maybe Love is singing her favorite song in the dark just so she can sleep. Maybe Love is giving away the shoes on your feet to help keep her warm. Maybe Love is coming over in the middle of the night when the power goes out because you know that she's afraid of the dark. And maybe Love is walking away because it's the only way that she'll find her light again. Love is so many things I never thought about, I never expected, never knew. And one of those things is being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, no matter how many obstacles stand in your way, no matter how dark, how hard, or how painful the road to recovery may be. No matter how many blows or setbacks try to drag you back down into the mud. We can't give our heart another without loving our own first. And that's exactly what I plan to do. Because when she goes to Dean's house, he is not there. He's already gone. When she goes back to her house, there is an envelope taped to her door. It's a note from Dean that says that he loves her, and it's the necklace, the locket. He returned it to her. Oh my God. In chapter 32, it's 8 months later. I joined a meetup group for PTSD survivors, and I have made an abundance of new friends and kindred spirits. I took up bike riding as a form of therapy, and I've put on a healthy amount of weight and muscle mass, spiking my confidence levels and prompting me to splurge on a new wardrobe. I have monthly coffee dates with Tabitha, weekly dinners with my parents, along with Mandy and her new boyfriend, and regular girly movie nights with Lily and the occasional coworker. I take my dogs for long walks in the evening. I picked up a summer hours at the school just to keep myself busy and distracted. I listen to inspirational podcasts and audiobooks. I drink smoothies. I take vitamins. I even got a tattoo. I won't lie and say that things are perfect now. I still have nightmares. I still sleep with the light on because the dark makes me uneasy. I still jump when someone touches me in an unfamiliar way, and I still mentally retreat sometimes, zoning out in the middle of a conversation when I don't even realize it. And I still miss him. But I'm healing. I'm learning. I'm growing. And there's no going back to the person that I was 8 months ago. Not ever. She's on her way to a lunch date with Tabitha, and she notes her new tattoo. It's a heartbeat tattoo, a little EKG symbol etched across the tiny scars I carved into my wrist with my own fingernails. It's drawn in the exact spot that Dean would comfort me in, and it's a daily reminder about the whole still beating thing. That if your heart's still beating, you're gonna be okay. She ended up so that spot on her wrist where Dean used to rub, she always would grab it and pinch at it and itch it and scratch it and stuff every time that she got stressed out. So it ended up eventually becoming scarred and marred skin because of how freaked out and whatever that she would get. So that's the scars that she's referencing. So she got them covered with this little tattoo. No. When she goes to leave, she's ordering little puppuccinos, little whipped cream cups for the dogs. And when she turns around, she runs into none other than Dean. It's been 8 months. They've texted a tiny bit, but they haven't seen each other at all. It hasn't been regular communication. He is so surprised to see her. He didn't even recognize her. And they stumble through these really, really awkward hellos. And he says that he's in town to see one of his buddies, Reed, that I mentioned earlier. They went to the bar together, forever ago. Just random passing thing. But Reed said that they needed to talk, and so he came to town to talk to him. And it's really, really awkward, and he says, okay, well, I'll get going again. He leaves, and she decides to run after him. I come to a slow stop in front of him, fluffing my hair back and laughing lightly. Can we do that over? Please, he chuckles, his hands on his hips, his eyes twinkling beneath the autumn sun. She pretty much asks him on a date that night if they can go and get dinner, and it's super cute. And they have their little conversation. And then in chapter 33, he's picking her up to go on their dinner date. They were going to go to the Ore, but they decide that maybe that's kind of awkward and not a good time, just given everything that's happened there. I don't know, being kidnapped. I don't know, having a freaking heart-to-heart in the parking lot that one time, crying. So instead, they go and get a bunch of junk food and sit out at the lake and have a picnic and talk. She ends up finding out that Mandy is dating Reed, Dean's best friend. Oh my God, they've been dating for a couple months, and Dean is talking to him, had him come to town because Reed wants to propose to Mandy. They've only been dating for like 8 months or so or whatever, but he's already just wanting to pull the trigger. And then we talk about the last 8 months, swapping stories and laughs and somehow inching closer and closer to each other on the grass. At one point, my head makes its way to the crook of his arm, and I take solace in the feel of his voice vibrating through me as he speaks. Chapter 34 is from Dean's perspective. It's cute, ending book stuff, whatever. The last paragraph of the book. Are you still mine? Cora doesn't hesitate. She reaches for my hand, placing it above her heart. It's still beating, she says. Her face lights up with a radiant smile that looks exactly like how her heartbeat feels. As long as it's beating, I'm yours. I don't read epilogues, so if you want to read an epilogue, you can. Like I said, it's on Kindle Unlimited. They had kids. Shocker. Everybody gets married and has babies and they're happy. This is a interconnected standalone. There's 2 other books that are in the same like universe. It's kind of interesting. I think one is about Tabitha and then one is about another kid, another guy. He was in the news story that got briefly mentioned in this. He got referenced. I have no idea. I didn't read him. What a good book. Like I said, I skimmed over so freaking much of this, mostly because it's traumatic, but it was so good. I had such a good time. And even though it was like very, very dark content, I didn't leave this book feeling that like existential dread that I do whenever I read like H.D. Carlton and Penelope Douglas and stuff, or Runix, or Rena Kent. There's so many authors that give me that feeling of, ugh. Not this one. This one was really, really good. I had a good time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this review. Like I said, Kindle Unlimited, if you do want to read it in detail, there is a lot of love story. It might have seemed superficial just because I did have to cut out so much in this review. It felt genuine. Their relationship and the building of it and everything felt legit. It was just very good. I think it was handled well. I think showing the realism of relationships and complicated, messy stuff and how human that we all really are, I think was represented so well. The PTSD discussions were done and handled so well. The main male character was supportive and loving and did everything that he could to like help her get through these horrible things. Genuinely happy. I would read another book by Jennifer Hartmann. I would in a heartbeat. I think that's all I have to say about it. I tried to do a review of this book yesterday, but my microphone sucked. I have it like half edited. I'm gonna see if I can recover it. Otherwise, I might just have like a really crappy version just go up as like bonus content or something. I'm so sad because I love that book so much. I was gushing over it. I don't know what my next review is going to be over. Like, I don't know what book I'm going to do yet. If you guys have any recommendations or anything that you would like to see me review, please leave it in the comments down below. I always appreciate anything that you guys have to say. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. You know the drill, especially if you made it to the end of the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Spotify. Leave a rating over there if you really like to. I'd really appreciate it. And I think with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.